My God, what did I just witness? Darby Allen is the new AEW World Champion at Spring Breaking, the show coming after Dynasty, the show coming after MJF successfully retained his world title against Kenny Omega in the main events. I cannot believe this. And the way they started the show with how MJF spoke to Darby Allen, really downgrading him, and the fact that they were in Seattle, and the fact that Bryan Danielson announced that he was gonna face him in the main event, and they were really keening home the fact that this was like a do or die for Darby, that he needed to win this match because of the opportunities he's had before at the world title and him failing to win it. And that when I saw Sting at the end of the show, it was really a giveaway that he was going to win the title. But man, the thing, people thought Darby Allen was going to be the guy that was going to beat Moxley for the world title last year because of the way he was being booked last year. And he did play a part in Hangman Adam Page winning the title from Moxley at All In, Texas. But, you know, it really comes in full circle for him, I have to say, for somebody that's, as risk of a taker as Darby Allen, one of the other AEW originals, you know, at one time he was considered as one of the pillars along with MJF. They had Jack Perry in that mix, but I feel like he's kind of fallen, since the time that they considered themselves as the pillars. MJF, Jack Perry, Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara has definitely fallen since that time. He's still really good in the ring, but just with how he's been booked and just other stuff that's happened with him, he's definitely fallen from like the early years that he's been in AEW. But the thing, Darby Allen, who's been there for the whole, ride of nearly 7 years since the company's been around, and he pays his dues, and I wonder with the way that MJF was squashed here, if this was his own idea. I mean, it really just kind of was unexpected how the match was booked. I mean, we recently saw MJF get squashed by Brody King, but that was a non-title match. That was like a title eliminator, where Brody King squashed him right before their match at that they had at Grand Slam in Australia, where he retained against Brody King. But this was very unexpected, the way that this was booked. But considering they were reaching the top of the hour, it's about to hit 10 o'clock, and sometimes they'll still have a match that'll go for a while, even when it's like past the hour. But man, this was definitely something that I didn't see coming. And then the other thing too is, again, the emotion that was driven. I mean, this was huge. This was really big for Darby. Because they said he climbed Mount Everest, which he did actually do, and we know Darby. He's that man. Just, I mean, for him to be, I think he's still in his 20s, I believe, or maybe he hit his 30s now. I want to say he's in his late 20s, maybe early 30s at this point. But he's taking so much risk to his body that, there's no telling how he's going to be as he get older with all the risks he's taken. But I have to say, because it's funny because MJF won the world title before Darby, but Darby was the first one to win a championship. He was the TNT champion early on. I think that was back in 2020. Yeah, because he actually beat Cody Rhodes. Now that I think about it, he beat Cody Rhodes to win the TNT championship. I think that was at it might have been in Full Gear 2020 when he beat Cody Rhodes to win the TNT championship, if I'm not mistaken. I know he won the TNT title early on. Him and Sting won the tag team titles before Sting retired. but he's definitely come a long way. He's definitely come a long way, and the one title that's eluded him was the AEW World Championship, and for him to have this moment, um, especially in this fashion, it should be interesting to see what they do with him. I mean, lately the last couple of world champions have not held the title for that long in terms of length. I mean, when Hangman won it at All In, he only held it for about almost 5 months, a little over 5 months, about 100 and something days, because he dropped it at World's End at the end of December when MJF won the title in the Fatal 4-Way. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm completely messed that up. He held it less than that because he won the title All In, but he dropped the title literally 3 months later at Wrestle Dream when Samoa Joe beat him in that cage match in the main event, because that's when Hook turned heel, turned against, Heyman actually helped Samoa Joe win the world title. So he won it, at All In and dropped it literally like 3 months later. So he only held it for about like maybe 90 something days or so, not really that long. And then Samoa Joe won it. And then Samoa Joe only held the title for even less time, for like a little over 2 months. Drops it at World's End. That's when MJF won it. And then MJF held the title for about 100 something days. Um, and so lately, the world title reigns have not been that long, ever since Moxley, held it for like almost a year. Um, but man, this the way that this was booked, you just kind of wonder um, if this was something that, is MJF about to take some time off again? Is he like about to go film a movie? I didn't really look at the inside of that, so I'm not really sure. I mean, the way this was booked, it kind of makes me believe, one or two things. Either, MJF personally, you know, you know, was keen in on putting Darby Allen over like this, or perhaps MJF is going to be taking some time off, and maybe, that's why I was booked this way. But the fact that, the match starts and MJF tries to move over, he tries to attack Darby from behind for a cheap shot. Darby gives him a low blow, and then he hits about at least 4 or 5 of his coffin drops, because he hits one from like 3 different turnbuckles. And then the way he pins him is a recall to when MJF pinned Darby Allen in the match that they had, the match they had at Full Gear. I don't think, was Darby Allen the one that took the pin in that Fatal 4-Way at Double or Nothing back in 2023? Somebody can remind me about that. I want to say it wasn't him who took the pin, but maybe it was. I got to look back at that match. But I know, like, the way he pinned MJF was basically like a recall to one of those matches. And I think it was the singles match they had back at Full Gear 2021. Because when MJF won that match, he pretty much pinned Darby Allin, like, in that fashion. So he kind of pinned them the same way to win the title. Everybody comes in the ring and celebrates. But I knew, like, when they showed Sting, I'm like, yeah, so this is pretty much telling me Darby Allin's got to be winning the world title. But, like I said, really big moment for him. It's definitely a big moment for Darby, I must say. Yeah, I mean, really big moment. I did not see this coming. Congrats to Darby, and it was a good show all around. I thought the match that Kevin Knight had with Claudio was really good for the TNT Championship. That was an awesome match. Really, really good match between those two. The match that Ospreay had with Petrosero. What is his name again? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the guy. His name. He's in the Don Callis family. That was also another really good match. Even with Osprey selling like his neck and his arms and stuff, it was still a really good match. Excuse me, between those two. So that was another excellent match. I thought the show overall was just a really good show, and it was really just centered around, you know, because they were in Seattle, Washington, and it was really centered around could Darby, do the unthinkable and win the title, and I just did not see that here coming the way it did it, but you know, awesome, awesome. You know, did not expect this at all. I mean, I think I'm more stunned to saying awesome, like I said, because I just wondered, does this mean MJF is taking time off, or I really wondered, like, of him being squashed like this, beaten in this fashion, kind of the backstory behind this, because the last time we seen this happen was with Brody King, but this time was actually for the title. But really good show, um, awesome show. I must say, really awesome show. Yeah, I definitely have to say that. But yeah, really good show, man. You know, so yeah, so that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that. But yeah, really enjoyed the show. Darby's the new AEW World Champion. Time will tell if he's an actual champion that will hold the title for a lengthy period, or if he's like a transitional champion or not. I hope that's not the case, but lately the last couple of world champions haven't held the title for that long, including MJF at this point. His first reign was much longer than this reign, and considering what WWE's been doing with being obsessed with having long title reigns, I mean, it's not always a bad thing to have titles change hands every couple of months. It definitely keeps it more fresh. And for WWE, by the way, I'm specifically talking about the world title, not not the other titles like the WWE Championship, for example. The way they kind of been toying around with that title at certain points, but I think it's good to have a balance. You can have a long reign, but I think having a mix where the champion, where you just don't, when you least expect it, for the champion to drop the belt. And this to me was unexpected, just because, MJF had just retained his title against King Omega, and we're all thinking like, okay, well maybe his next, and whoever the next contender is, it's going to be at Double or Nothing. And they're going to go, for the title. And I was thinking even for this match, perhaps they would have done it at Double or Nothing. They might do a rematch, though, at Double or Nothing, because there's a lot of time between now and Double or Nothing, so that's the only thing. But yeah, just like I said, even a match that Willow Nightingale had with Camellia, who we haven't seen in quite some time in AEW, that was a pretty decent match too. So for the TBS Championship. So like I said, really good show. And Darby Allen's the new AEW World Champion. I'm just stunned by that. But we'll see what happens with it, man. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'm ready to flex, like, I'm subscribing. That's what you guys know.